Chapter 5. Pressure mounts. Desiree sat in the sterile confines of the Bureau's forensic suite, her eyes locked on the screen as a stream of decrypted data flowed past. She hadn't slept. Coffee had replaced rest, and obsession had overtaken protocol. Officer Brett Gordon and Judge Harold Wexler hadn't just been victims. They were linked, connected by more than their titles and executions. The patterns were emerging, and they pointed to something foul beneath the surface. It wasn't forensic evidence. Honey Badger was far too meticulous for that. But at Wexler's crime scene, the encrypted USB drive left behind was the spark. Inside, documents, offshore banking logs, and coded transcripts. Once cracked, it painted a damning picture of Judge Wexler's involvement in high-level human trafficking. And it was Wexler who helped the defense set Gordon free. The prosecutor never stood a chance. Buried within those files, Desiree had found something else. Financial threads leading to Gordon. One shell company paid both men. One trafficked power and bodies. The other ensured silence on the streets. Gordon had received quiet transfers over years, too well hidden for the average eye. But not for Honey Badger. Not anymore. Desiree leaned back and exhaled. He's not just making a point. He's dismantling a network. Her phone buzzed. "Agent Lee, the director wants a full update. 10 minutes, barked Special Agent Hutton. Inside the Bureau's secure briefing room, the atmosphere was heavy. Director Barnes sat at the head of the table like a judge at a wartime tribunal. No nonsense, no time for fluff. "Status," he said flatly. Desiree stood, steel in her spine despite the fatigue clawing at her nerves. "We've connected Wexler and Gordon through financial records. Same shell company, same pattern. We believe they were part of a trafficking network. Wexler protected it in court. Gordon enforced it on the ground. Honey Badger exposed that connection." A junior agent frowned. "So what are we saying? This guy's doing our job for us?" "No," Desiree snapped. "He's executing people, public officials. No matter what they did, it's murder." "But people are starting to notice," Hutton interjected, tone sharp. "Online chatter, underground forums. They're calling him a ghost, a hero, a necessary evil." Barnes's voice cut through the room. "That ends now. We cannot let a vigilante dictate justice. If he kills again, it's on all of us. I want progress, not theories. Find something we can use." Desiree nodded. "We're working the financial data, tracing connections. If we can predict his next target." "Predict it fast," Barnes warned. "Because if there's a third, this doesn't just become a pattern. It becomes a war." Back at her workstation, Desiree stared at the crime board. Two faces. Brett Gordon, Harold Wexler. Her marker traced a red line between them, both stained by money, power, silence. The question wasn't if Honey Badger would strike again. It was when and who. She felt the pressure growing, from Barnes, from Hutton, from the Bureau, from herself, and worst of all, from Honey Badger's silence. He wasn't leaving breadcrumbs. He was erasing his trail as he walked it. But maybe, just maybe, the trail he didn't know he was leaving was in the people he hadn't killed yet. She stood and muttered under her breath, "I have to find him, before he finds the next one." Later that night, after closing up his clinic, Marcus sat quietly in his matte black SUV, parked under a broken street lamp. His window was slightly cracked, letting in the cool breeze and the scent of freshly cut grass. He was parked on the far end of a quiet street, engine off, lights out, nearly invisible in the shadows. Across the street, the porch light of a brick townhouse flicked on. Right on schedule. Janelle stepped out with Max, the golden retriever she'd brought to his clinic just days ago. Same leash, same routine. She wore yoga pants and a hoodie, her thick curly hair pulled into a messy puff. Max trotted beside her happily, stopping to sniff every patch of grass. Janelle had a natural sway in her walk, relaxed and confident. She laughed at something Max did and shook her head, her voice soft and melodic as she whispered something only the dog could hear. Marcus didn't move. He just watched, eyes narrowing, taking in everything. He already knew her name, her job, youth counselor at the Midtown Community Center. He knew her schedule. Morning walks at 6:30, work from 9 to 5, sometimes later if she had teen outreach. Grocery runs on Sundays, poetry nights every other Thursday at a cafe on Walton and 3rd. No kids. Divorced 3 years ago. No current boyfriend. No serious entanglements. Max was her only companion. She was exactly the kind of woman he'd always admired from a distance. Beautiful, grounded, warm. But admiration was dangerous in his world. Affection was lethal. Marcus leaned back in the driver's seat and let out a long, silent breath. He wasn't just watching her because she was attractive. He was studying her, learning her patterns the way he learned his targets. But this time, it wasn't about planning a hit. It was about fighting the urge to make contact, to let himself want something he knew he shouldn't. He rubbed a hand over his jaw and muttered to himself, "What would I even say? Hi, I patch up dogs by day and execute corrupt officials by night. Want to grab a drink?" He chuckled dryly, but the humor faded quickly. Every fiber of his training screamed against it. Getting involved meant exposure. Getting involved meant distractions. Getting involved meant giving the enemy something to exploit. But as he watched Janelle kneel to scratch Max behind the ears, whispering sweet nothings into his fur, Marcus felt something twist in his gut. A longing he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Not since the war. Not since the mission. Not since revenge became his full-time job. He clenched the steering wheel until the leather creaked beneath his grip. This woman didn't know it, but she represented everything he'd given up to become Honey Badger. A chance at peace, a chance at love, a chance at being human again. She turned back toward her townhouse, Max trailing beside her, tail wagging. She paused at the top of the steps, glanced toward the street like she sensed something out there in the darkness. Marcus stayed perfectly still. Their eyes never met. She turned and went inside. He remained parked for another 5 minutes, fighting the urge to get out, to walk up to her door, to say something stupid like, "I liked your laugh," or "Max is a good boy." Instead, he started the engine, shifted into drive, and whispered to himself, "Not yet." Then he pulled away slowly, disappearing into the night like he always did. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Codename Honey Badger. We appreciate your support and hope you enjoyed the ride. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget, next week's episode drops right here. Same time, same channel. Until then, stay sharp, stay locked in, and we'll see you next time. This is just the beginning.